Research has revealed a lot of factors that trigger the formation of cancer cells. Some you may know and some you probably have never heard of. Well, you have the opportunity of getting to hear some interesting aspects of that phenomenon and how to prevent the deadly disease, which is curable if detected early. Hello and thanks for joining us on another episode of Health Options. Health Options is the program that not only tracks government policies on health, but gives you the information you need to make informed choices about your health. On COVID-19, the federal government released a revised international travel protocol for travelers coming into the country with effect from Monday, the 25th of October. We shall take a look at these and other issues revolving around the nation's efforts at stemming the tide of the global coronavirus pandemic. Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Rabi Abdullah. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Health Options. We begin with the federal government's revised international travel protocol for inbound travelers announced by the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, which took effect from Monday, the 25th of October. And to take us through this is the technical head, Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Dr. Mohammed Mukhtar. It's good to have you once again on Health Options, Dr. Mukhtar.
Thank you, Rabi. Good evening.
Yeah, a lot had happened since the last time you came on set, and we have a revised, protocol for inbound travelers. We know that the year is exiting, and this is a period where people become really, really up mobile, and it's expected that we're going to see influx of people coming into the country from abroad. Quickly take us into the revised protocol, and what sets it apart from the previous.
Thank you very much. Most certainly, we have seen the number of cases coming down over the last few weeks. And we know that the previous waves of the pandemic have been associated with the period where we have peaks of travel. We had some end of the year, we had it around May, June when the schools are on summer vacation. And now we are looking forward to be very cautious and to try to put all measures in place to make sure that when the peak of travel occurs in the next few weeks, that we have placed our country in a position to prevent the influx of passengers who may be COVID positive. So the revised protocol essentially, first of all, cleared the list of countries that were in what we call the restricted list. We have done a risk assessment earlier on in the year, and we have identified countries that are likely to import the Delta variant at that time. Because of the risk and because of the volume of travel between Nigeria and those countries. So we have revised that criteria, we have assessed these countries, and we realize that it is now safe for people to travel to those countries and for passengers returning from those countries to also come into Nigeria.
For the benefit of the viewers, can you, bring up those countries? I know Turkey,
the countries,
India,
yes, exactly. So India was one of the countries. We have removed India earlier on in September, but now we have removed additional 3 countries, which is Turkey, Brazil, and South Africa. Okay. Now, this does not mean that we have completely abolished the restricted list. We will do a review of the countries. and we will assess the risk of importation of the virus into Nigeria, and then we'll classify countries that pose this health hazard to Nigeria, and then we'll impose some of the restrictions again.
Okay.
So the revised protocol takes into consideration what passengers need to do when they are coming into Nigeria. You know, earlier on in the former protocol, when you are coming from non-restricted countries, you do your COVID PCR test 72 hours before you leave that country. You arrive in Nigeria, you complete your health questionnaire, you upload that this thing through the portal, the results through the portal, you get checked at the airport, then you now proceed home to your final destination, where after 7 days you'll do home isolation for 7 days and you'll be tested again. This is to ensure that when you start interacting with the community, you are COVID negative. So that was the standard protocol for the people who are from non-restricted countries. But if you are coming from the restricted countries at that time, before we remove the list, that is if you are coming from Turkey, Brazil, India, or South Africa, you will do the 72-hour PCR test before you leave the country, before you board the airplane. You will go onto the portal, complete your health questionnaire, upload your test result. When you arrive in Nigeria, you will be screened. There will be temperature screening, and then you will go into mandatory quarantine at designated facilities. So we had hotels that were marked for quarantine. These passengers go into these hotels. On the following day after their arrival, which is day 2, we now do a PCR test on them just to ensure that they are negative, that the test they did was valid from the other country. And then they will do their 7-day quarantine, and then on day 7, we'll do another PCR for them before they exit the quarantine. This is the old protocol. But with the revised protocol, what we have taken into consideration is the overall global risk for vaccination, for COVID-19 transmission has reduced, because most of the countries where passengers are coming from have done vaccination beyond certain critical level, and therefore the circulation of the virus in those communities has actually reduced. And therefore, based on the data we even have in the country, we realize that the test positivity among the travelers has actually come down. So based on that, but in our own country, we know that our vaccination is still not enough, is still not significant. That means if a person who is positive comes into the country, the likely chance of him meeting people who are unvaccinated is higher than 98%, because we're just about 2%. Coverage in our vaccination. So for that reason, we still have to put some extra measures to make sure that we protect Nigerians. So we classify the passengers into those who are vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated. Passengers who are vaccinated, when they arrive in Nigeria, of course they will do their PCR 72 hours before they travel to ensure that they are negative before they even board the flight. When they come here, they do the health screening, and then they do a test on day 2 of arrival. This is for vaccinated people. So they do their PCR. If they're negative, that's fine. They can now interact freely with the community. Of health. Exactly. Okay. For people who are not vaccinated, number one, they are at risk of getting infected. So when they travel to that country, if they are Nigerians or they are coming, if they are unvaccinated, they have a higher chance of getting the infection than people who are vaccinated. And therefore, we have to put an additional layer. So such people, when they come into the country, after the health check, they will now do the day 2 testing, just to ensure that immediately they are negative. But you know that there is some period that it will take before, you know, the test detects that you are actually positive. So they still have to do another test on day 7. During this period, they are supposed to be in isolation. They're not supposed to go out and interact with the people. If they are public servants or working in any industry, they're not supposed to go and report to work. They stay at home until after 7 days, then they now test on day 7. And if they are negative, now they have a clean bill to interact with other people. So this is the brief.
Okay, nice to hear that. We've heard of sharp practices, you know, among health officials at the ports, you know, of entry at the airports, to be specific. Have you addressed that now? I mean, regarding isolation, people give money to officials to allow them just go home instead of you know, going for isolation in the government designated facilities.
This is a continuous process, and as you know, we have continued to prosecute people. There were issues of people who were compromised, both at the government side and some from even the private laboratory. They have been dismissed. We have closed laboratories because of sharp practices. And currently we are investigating several cases where there are allegations of people who connived with officials, collected bribe, and did something wrong regarding passengers arriving in Nigeria. So all these are things we take very seriously. Right now, there are investigations going on in Lagos and in Abuja, where some of the health officials were named, in such compromises. And we're taking it very, very seriously, because this is something regarding, the health of a nation. We know, and our biggest fear is that we are largely an unmitigated community because we have not taken vaccination. And we know the danger of the circulation, particularly of the dangerous mutant variants. We thank God at least the third wave has been dampened. It is not as much as was predicted it was going to be, largely because of the efforts that have been put in place. And we know that our people are not complying to the protocol. So we are a little apprehensive, and we are taking this very seriously, and we are taking serious punitive measures for anyone that we find is compromised, because we do not want any weak link in our chain.
Very well, I quite agree with you. On a final note, we're still grappling with the issue of vaccine hesitancy, and I read somewhere that the percentage of men vaccinated outnumber, that of women. Why do you think women? Is there something we're not getting? Because I know during the polio, era, women were sneaking their babies out of vaccination without even the knowledge of their husbands. So how comes we're lagging behind this time around with COVID-19 vaccine?
Well, absolutely, there are so many factors. We do not have exact reason why maybe more males accept vaccines than females. And we do not know even why many people still, despite the availability of the vaccine, are not coming forward to take the vaccines. But we can classify this into maybe 2 or 3 reasons. You have people who are not aware of the real reason or the real condition. They are ignorant, of the vaccines, and therefore this group only need to be educated and be sensitized, and they will accept it. You have people who follow conspiracy theories, who really believe that something is wrong. Why are we not treating malaria for free? Why are we not addressing the issues of banditry and terrorism? People are looking for all sorts of reason. They are blinded, by other occurrences in the society and blame government for everything. So again, these are people also who we need to take along, who need to be moved and probably cajoled and convinced that this vaccine is for their benefit. Then you have the last category of people who, no matter what you do, they do not really plan to get vaccinated. This is the difficult group, and I'm afraid there are many people, both educated and uneducated,
fall within
now,
that category.
Yes, who fall within that category, and that is why we are taking some serious steps. As a government has a responsibility for the health, safety, and security of the entire society, and your freedom stops where someone else's freedom starts. Yes. We cannot afford a workplace where people who are largely not vaccinated be attending the same offices with people who are vaccinated. The fact that you are vaccinated does not mean that you are not going to get the infection. You can get it, but most likely you will not fall sick, or you will not die from it. But you can still transmit that infection to your children at home, to elderly, to people who have other illnesses at home, and they can die from it. So government is trying to protect the workplace, and that is why we have certain measures that are going to be introduced come December 1st to make sure that, at least from the federal level, we set an example and people are vaccinated and people feel safe to go to their work.
Okay, thank you. We look forward to that, Dr. Mukhtar. Thank you for coming on Health Options.
Thank you very much, Rabi. It's always a pleasure being here.
It's time for our Nature Scanner, where we bring you the interesting piece on factors that trigger the formation of cancer cells in the human body and how to prevent that.
Cancer is what we call is an evolutionary adaptation of the body cells. That is to say that the body exists under a natural environment where the physiologic state. But once that environment changes, then some of the cells will have to adapt. That's what we say is an evolutionary adaptation. They will change. And those change cells are what are known as cancer cells. What are the factors that predispose to this change of environment? When the body's environment, for example, becomes too acidic, because the body is supposed to operate in a neutral environment or an alkaline environment. But in an acidic environment, then some of the cells cannot survive under that. So they change their own pathway, specifically of metabolism. So they become cancerous. Some of the characteristics of these cells is that normally our body cells will die through a natural process known as apoptosis. After some number of days, the new cells will come in. But once cancer, those cells disobey the genetic code or instructions, they no longer die via apoptotic cell death, the natural cell death. So they continue like this. It must interest you also to know that cancer cells, before they become numerous, it takes a long time. There is what we call the life cycle of cancer cell. When that cell disobeyed and became cancerous, it takes 90 days in the body for them to multiply and become two. After that, takes about 2 years for them to be 4 cells. And after that, then you start the rapid multiplication. The summary of it is that before we are dictated as being cancerous, it has taken over 10 years, period. There are factors that make the body to become acidic. Number one, the diet, the type of diet that you take, especially meat. Red meat, for one, makes the body to become acidic. Lack of exercise makes the body to become acidic. Emotional, or what we call toxic emotions, can also make the body to become acidic. There are toxins like anxiety, like depression, and the lack of spirituality. Say that? Anger too. Talking about toxins, you have 2 levels of toxins. You have the external toxins that will come into the body, and then the toxins that the body generates itself. All this will make the body's environment to change and become acidic, thereby paving the way for the right environment for cancer cells to proliferate and multiply. These days we've come to know that inflammation is the hallmark of all diseases. That is to say that inflammation precedes all diseases. And this is exactly where sugar comes in. Sugar exacerbates inflammation. That is to say that sugar drives up inflammation. But looking at it, you see, what is also happening, naturally, sugar is distributed in the body by a hormone known as insulin. So when you have excessive sugar intake, the level of insulin is actually increased. With increased level of insulin, there's increased inflammation leading to development of cancer. These are the factors that also contribute to acidic environment. You talk about salt. Salt will typically make the environment or the cellular environment more acidic. Then you have other factors such as even bad water. There is even acidic water. With some of the water that we take is really acidic. It actually promotes the acidic environment. But sugar, for one, is key and very, very important in promoting inflammation. And if we want to prevent cancer, we have to check the amount of sugar that we take in our bodies, as is a promoter of inflammation, which drives the development of cancer. Chances of developing cancer are actually low if you choose not to consume a lot of sugar and then red meat. Not only does sugar drive inflammation, but sugar is the main food that cancer cells feed on. And that is to say that sugar or glucose is obligate metabolizers of that cancer cells feed mainly on sugar. Likewise, other habits like red meat. Red meat also contains the byproduct or the down the line degradation of meat in our body result in what they call lactic acid, which is lactic acidosis, promoting and enhancing the acidic environment, which is very viable for cancer cells to thrive. We say prevention is the best answer to cancer, followed by early detection, as well as sleep. Sleep deprivation is one of the main causes of cancer. And that is why we keep emphasizing that it is very important for you to have adequate sleep. Because if you sleep well, the body detoxifies, remove the toxins from your body. Then sleep is also gives you not to have inflammation. Now remember we say exacerbated inflammation causes cancer. So these are the benefits of sleep as a causative factor of cancer. In addition, we know that when you look at toxins, you have external toxins, and part of these external toxins comes from radiation. These days you have radiations coming from microwaves, radiations coming even from the sun, rays, then other electromagnetic sources, including MRI, X-rays, and all of them. They all come together to actually say that, and then cell phones. They are all causes of electromagnetic radiations. And how do post-electromagnetics or radiations actually cause cancer? They all cause what we call the DNA damage, because the DNA is what actually repairs our cells and stop them from going into abnormal cells. But once the DNA is damaged, the cells repair cannot effectively take place. And this is what I call genetic disobedience by the cell. The cells now go into the direction of development of cancer. So these radiations by way of the sun, from electromagnetic, microwave, the phone radiations, these communication towers that we have, all of them, they compound a very risky source of exposure of radiations to us. How we make actually vitamin D is actually dependent on from the rays, the UV rays, from the sun. But excessive of this causes cancer, like we know of cancer, skin cancer. That's what I'm talking about. So when I refer to radiations, I mean excessive radiation. Otherwise, normal exposure to the sun, it is very very good for our bodies, especially in the morning, between the hours of 10 and then 11. That is the type of sun that you need for vitamin D synthesis, so that you can have vitamin D in the. So let's not be misled by that the sun rays are not good for us. They are super good for us for the manufacture of vitamin D in our body. It's only when it becomes excessive that it can cause, for example, skin cancer.
This is where we end this episode of Health Options. A quick reminder that you can go to our YouTube channel to watch the upload of these and other episodes of the program. Continue to stay safe. It is wise to go screen for cancer, as early detection saves life. I remain yours, Rabi Abdullah. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again.